Hello, welcome to Travel Talks. My name is Kate Sanders, Director of Alumni Group Travel and Academic Enrichment at Oregon State University. Our online Travel Talks program invites experts from across the university to learn about the places we travel. So please save the date for two upcoming talks. We have one on April 2nd about Ireland, and you'll hear all from OSU alumnus Elizabeth Bell talk about her wonderful home country. And then also on May 6th, we have some scientists from NASA that will be joining us for the Aurora Borealis and solar eclipse talk. And they'll be talking about NASA's Aurorasaurus citizen science project. It'll be quite interesting. As a reminder, our travel talks are all recorded. This one will be recorded as well, and it'll be online at fororegonstate.org/travel. I always like to talk about a couple tours before we begin. And this one I want to highlight, I highlighted at our last talk as well. If we are going to the Smoky Mountains, and it'll be just perfectly paired when OSU plays Appalachian State. So it'll be our first time over East playing football. And if you want to see the area before the game, then you might check out this wonderful tour. We also have a trip to Iceland coming up. Iceland is always a popular trip to go on. So if that has been on your list, then this is an exclusive Oregon State tour, meaning that it'll just be Oregon Staters on the tour. And of course, and your friends and family are always welcome to join. And then the last one to mention is Montreal and Quebec City at Christmas time. So if you want to stay a little close to home, but feel a little bit far away, you may want to check it out. And then, as of course, our tours are online at fororegonstate.org/travel. Now, wanted to highlight one last quick thing because this is new, and I don't know if any of you have seen this. On our website, we have a new alumni button. We've heard feedback that it was a little hard to find some of our Alumni Association content on the website. So this new alumni button will take you to a new page, and it will help you find all the content that is associated with the Alumni Association. And if you're looking for the travel program, which I hope you are, it's down here under the participate column. So now would like to introduce our speaker with us today. We're going to talk about Have Sharks Will Travel with OSU's Big Fish Lab. The OSU Big Fish Lab studies sharks around the world to better understand their movement and reproductive behaviors and protect their habitat. Tonight, you're going to hear from a unique perspective about the interconnectedness of travel, conservation, and the marine world we all love to explore. Joining us today is James Silikowski, and he is the director of the Coastal Oregon Marine Experiment Station down in Newport and with the Big Fish Lab. Welcome, James.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And I will stop my screen and let you take over.
All right. So, here we go. All right. Well, again, I'm very excited to be here. Talk about some of the great and very cool organisms that we study. And you can see one right here. This is Rose, and Rose was a tiger shark that we were conducting some research on amongst many other species in the Maldives last May. So I'll talk a little bit about that during this presentation. So one of the things that I like to start off with in talks like this is, what does everyone think about when they hear the word shark? And again, this is a picture of Rose. She's iconic. She actually has a hook in her mouth. She's been captured and released. She's tough, that's for sure. But for most people, when they think about a shark, because they're so polarizing, this often pops up into mind. And they're terrifying. The media has villainized sharks. They made them into these mindless killing machines that are out to get us. And Jaws was hard to overcome for the species. And really, it became even more difficult when you think about Jaws 2, right? Just when you got over Jaws and you thought it was safe to go back in the water, there you go. Sharks were out to get you. Then, of course, there was Jaws 3 in 3D, which I would not recommend. And then finally, Jaws: The Revenge. And this is my favorite because this time it was personal. And for a lot of individuals, they think it is personal and that sharks are really out to get us and that we are part of their food chain. But in many of the interviews that I've done across the United States and globally, no matter what the topic is, it always relates back to, sharks are threatening people and they want to eat people. Why are they having all these attacks? And I always come back to the topic by saying that, you know what, we're not on the menu, and we really are not. And despite the surges in bites and all those different things, the fact of the matter is that sharks don't want to eat us. And if they did, right, you can imagine this scene. Looks like a wonderful day at the beach, nice and relaxing, lots of space. How easy we would be to be picked off, right? If we actually were on the menu, there would be hundreds and thousands of people disappearing every single day. And the fact of the matter is that only about 100 people globally interact with sharks. So land mammals and land other animals that are out there, and actually anything on the land is more dangerous than a shark when it comes down to it. So there's nothing to fear about going into the ocean. So enjoy the beach if you can. Now, one of the things that the Big Fish Lab does is we try to change that dogma or that paradigm of sharks being this villainous creature. And in fact, they're important and they're a necessity for the world and for us. They keep the oceans clean. They're an apex predator. And without sharks, we wouldn't have the world in which we live in now. And that's a very important message that we like to sort of pass on to the public. Now, the Big Fish Lab is a big lab. There's actually 3 members. I'm the director of the Coastal Oregon Marine Experiment Station, and I'm a member of the Big Fish Lab. Dr. Taylor Tappel, he actually founded it back in 2019 when he started as an assistant professor here at Oregon State University. And we have Dr. Alex McInturf. She's a research associate in our lab. And the 3 of us have something really special here at Oregon State University. And we comprise the largest group of shark scientists at an academic institution, not only in the United States, but across the globe. And that allows us to do some really special research because we really can study sharks from every angle. We all have our specialties that we sort of mix together. And because there's 3 of us, we can also have a very big lab. Between the 3 of us, we have about 20 students that work for us, both undergraduate and graduate students, all getting hands-on experiential learning here at Oregon State University. And, that's critical to our mission, and it's really critical to, the prosperity widely shared as well. So we really like the fact that we're able to contribute so much, not only to Oregon State and the students, but also to sharks in general. So it's a great fit for us. The great thing about our work too is that we study sharks globally. Everywhere there's a shark, we try to get in there and study them. And you can see by this map that we are all over the place and we collaborate with all sorts of different scientists in these areas as well. So our reach is far, it's wide, it's global. And we really like to think that we're making a difference in not only the sharks and their lives, but also globally as well. Now, our work has been focused and shown across multimedia, from NPR to Discovery Channel, Shark Week, Good Morning America, you name it. It's high profile, high impact. And we love bringing that to Oregon State. Now, what I'm going to talk about is the topics that we study and how we do it with sharks. And we like to think about in kind of 3 concepts. We think about movements, we think about the behavior of sharks, and we think about reproduction and how they're carrying on the next generation. And in the middle, you see Taylor and Alex getting ready to tag a basking shark over in Ireland. And I'll talk a little about that in just a second. So how do we see, these cool animals, right? We see them in the water, they're amazing, they're fast, they're sleek, but they're in the water, right? And it becomes really difficult for us to study something that oftentimes we can't see. We don't even know that they're there. So how do we do that, right? How do we understand sharks in their environment? Well, one of the ways that we do this is that we tag them, and we put some sort of device on them to be able to track them or study them when they're out of sight or they're beneath the waves. Now we use a whole suite of different types of tags to do this, and I'll kind of walk through each one of them. And the first that I'll talk about is an acoustic tag, and it's this one you see right here, and it has an acoustic receiver that it talks to. Now, kind of how does this work? Well, first you kind of have to tag the shark, and as the shark kind of swims by, right, you can see about getting ready to tag it right there. By, boom, tag the shark, it swims by, and we'll see the tag right there. Now the cool part is that tag will give us a very specific specimen number. Every shark has its unique identifying number. And when that shark swims by a receiver, that receiver picks up that information, and it either will store it or it'll transmit it to a satellite, which we can download. And we know that that shark has swam by that location. Now, this type of research works really well on coastal species that, or within a few miles of shore, that we can go and download the data, or that we can have better access to the data. Sometimes we can't do that, and we have to work in environments that are way offshore, 50, 100 miles offshore, sharks that don't come close to shore. And to do that, you use two different types of tags, and these are satellite tags. The one you see here on the top of the fin, we call that a fin mount tag or a spot tag. And the one that you see here is called a PSAT or a pop-off satellite tag. Now, the way that they work is a little bit similar, but a little bit different than the acoustic tag. We have to attach it, so those sharks move by, and we pop it on. And the shark will carry that satellite tag, the pop-off tag, for a specific duration of time. Could be 6 months, could be a year. However we decide for that tag to stay on. And it's collecting a temperature, it's collecting a depth, and it's collecting a geolocation. And when it pops to the surface, it transmits all that data to a satellite, and then we get it and we put it back together like a puzzle. And we can see where that shark was, at what depth it was, and what temperatures it preferred. The fin mount tag works a little bit differently, right? You can see this is a poor beagle shark, and this is a shark that we tag up in New England. And the poor beagle is a cool species that it's related to the white shark. It's like a cross between a mako and a white shark. But you can see the pop-off tag here. You can see the fin mount here. Now, when the shark's fin hits the surface, right, that fin mount has a wet-dry sensor, and it detects that it's dry, and it provides a real-time geolocation of that shark. So if that shark surfaces and that tag transmits, and a satellite collects that data, we know exactly where that shark is at that point in time. And it's a really good way for us to track these things, these sharks, in real time. Now, I've shown you a bunch of big sharks. So your white shark, that's some work off in California. Poor beagles, that's off in New England. I'm going to show you we put these on little sharks too. Now, this is a cool species. This is actually in French Polynesia. This is a black-tip reef shark. And they're little. They're only about 4 feet long. And you can see that this one has a pop-off satellite tag. It's got a fin mount satellite tag on it. And it's swimming away, and it's going to tell us all about its location. Now, this data it's amazing because not only does it give us, real-time data, but the PSATs will give us that temperature, the depth data, and we can really get a good idea of where these sharks are going and where they're spending their time. And why is that cool? Well, if you look at some of the sharks that we've tagged, you can see that all these colors represent different species. And this is where these animals have gone. And we can really hone in on areas that are migration routes or potentially hot spots of where they may be spending their time. And we can take this information and we can work to create protected areas so that fishing pressures or some other environmental pressure that we can control can be reduced in order to keep these sharks safe at any given time. And this is why this data is so important, but it gives you an idea that sharks, they travel all over the place. They don't understand international boundary lines, which kind of makes our work both very exciting but frustrating at the same time. Now, we've been able to track sharks' movement, which is great, but we can also understand other parts of their biology as well. And there's a very special tag that allows us to actually track and watch what a shark is doing underwater. And this is called a CATS cam. And you can see it right here. This is off of California. This is Taylor getting ready to put one on. And here basically the shark swims by. Taylor clips it on the fin. The shark swims away. And what's super cool about that is that these are meant to stay on for a few days to a week. And then there's a zinc attachment that dissolves and that tag floats to the surface and we're able to retrieve it and get all the data, which is super cool. And this is what sharks do. Oops. So this is an actual shark swimming underwater, right? It's a white shark off of California. You can see the seals swimming by. Shark's not very hungry, right? Seals are going away. It's in a kelp forest. But this is a bird's eye view of what that shark is actually doing. And it's super cool. And it's given us a lot of information of the daily life of a shark. What is it doing? And that it's actually exploring. It's not just a mindless eating machine eating everything that it sees. It's seeking out specific things to feed on. But this is just another example of how we can use technology to learn and better understand shark species. So one of the questions we have then is like, you have all this movement and you can see where they're going, you can even see what they're doing underwater, but sharks do interesting behaviors. And one of the behaviors is they group together. And why do they do that? What could they possibly benefit from this, right? If they're just hungry and eating everything, why would they eat each other? And don't get me wrong, sharks are cannibals and they will eat each other, but at certain times of their lives, they do group, they form these social behaviors. And this is something that we're really interested in. Not only where they go, but why are they moving in a certain way? And so some of the work that we do has been led by Alex and Taylor. Is actually off the coast of Ireland. Beautiful. And this is their little boat. And they're just sort of hanging out, waiting for basking sharks. And you can see there's a couple swimming around right there. Big, beautiful animals, critically endangered. So the more we can understand about the species, the more we can, learn about how to protect them. I love showing this. And some of the behaviors are so unique. These three sharks looks like they're in sync. When I first saw it, I was like, I thought this was a computer animation. It was fake, it was pretend, but they're all in sync. And what are they doing together? Now, basking sharks are an interesting species in that they're filter feeders. And you can see that their mouths are wide open. They're actually just cruising through their mouths open, eating little copepods and zooplankton that's in the water column. Now, to study, these species, you gotta have a lot of nerve. They're huge. They can be, 20, 30 feet long. And you can see here they're in a group. They're all swimming with their mouths open. So, maybe they're grouping together to feed. Are these sharks pregnant? Are these sharks different size classes? Are they all related? Or questions that we want to know. And these tags and the ability to study them in certain ways, it's just not going to open up our minds to the processes that are actually going on here. They're such a cool species. So one of the things that you have to do, obviously, is you have to tag the shark in order to study them, right? And again, here's Taylor and Alex tagging a basking shark. which is very big. Look at all those. Again, no teeth, they can't bite. Tag it and it swims off. Now, the tags that we use to do this are very specific. They're different than the ones that we've used before. They're kind of like a combination of an acoustic tag and an acoustic receiver. We call these actually chat tags. You can see there's one here. Now, if you put these on sharks, these tags will talk to each other, right? And they'll kind of let us know what sharks are hanging out together, how long they're hanging out together, and what positions do they have together, and it tells us all these really cool information about their sort of social network. And that's how we kind of describe it. It's kind of like Facebook for sharks. And over on this chart right here, you can see a bunch of different lines. Well, the thicker lines represent sharks that have a stronger social network, or that are always together, always communicating, always swimming side by side. And the smaller lines represent sharks that have a weaker social link, or that maybe just be passing by one another. And so we're hoping to better understand these networks and how these sharks are, interacting with one another, and why are they spending so much time together, sort of swimming around in these certain areas. So we can track sharks, we can see where they go, we can look at their behaviors, right? And by understanding more about these processes, we're able to kind of redefine narratives. And one of the narratives that we're really excited about redefining is sharks as moms. Not many people think that sharks are moms, but they are. Many species actually give live birth. They carry the young throughout gestation. And part of understanding where an animal goes and where they spend their time allows us to really protect them. And protecting sharks that are moms is critical to their conservation and management. Look, if a mom shark is being captured and killed, then not only do we lose her and her ability to propagate the next generation, we also lose her babies as well. And so we're really keen on combining these techniques to really be able to understand how to protect moms and what are the behaviors in the environments that they're living in. So how do we help shark moms? Well, we combine these technologies, right? Movement and habitat use to behaviors to reproductive biology. And we're doing this with all sorts of new novel techniques that only we are able to do. And that's another really cool thing about our work, is that we're the only scientists in the world that are using these techniques. And so why are we developing them? Why do we care about this? Well, first, sharks are a lot like us. They grow really slow. I'm sure you've heard that, the Greenland shark can live to be 400 years old. But a lot of species actually, live about as long as we do. 70, 80, 90, 100 years, don't reach sexual maturity until past their teens. Some, reproduce every other year. They produce very few young. So fishing pressures, anthropogenic pressures like that, and environmental pressures really put stress on the animals. Now, back in the day, and what I'm going to show you is fairly graphic, so if you want to turn away, sharks were studied, the reproductive biology were studied by sacrificing. Okay, and so if you're an endangered species, you really can't be sacrificed. And if you sacrifice a shark, you can't put a tag on them and really track them. So how do you study a shark that's pregnant, and how do you even know that they're pregnant? Is the question. So those are the techniques that we're developing. And so one of the techniques that we use is actually an ultrasound, and that ultrasound works just like when you might go to a doctor, and a woman might go in and see how her baby's growing, or you might take your dog to the vet. Same kind of technology, but we just use it on sharks, and it's super cool. And I'll walk you through a little video of us in action. This is actually a poor beagle. You can see we're getting blood here as well. That's us using an ultrasound, which is vet grade. It's waterproof. We pull the shark on board. We put a aerator in its mouth. It's putting water over the gills. It's like us going scuba diving. This is New England in October. You can see we're all wearing our coats. It's pretty cold. You can see me doing the ultrasound. And the cool thing is that when she's pregnant, you get to see baby sharks. And these are baby sharks. These are actually tiger sharks. You can see that's an eye, it's a mouth opening. That's the vertebrae right there. And it's like Christmas morning when we see something like this. All babies packed inside mom. And tiger sharks are a cool species. Now sharks have 2 uteri that are functioning. And a tiger shark can give birth to up to 80 babies, 40 on each side. So it's when we see something like this, it's super cool. And it's like, again, it's like Christmas morning. The cool thing about these ultrasounds is that we can actually measure the babies inside. That gives us an idea of what stage mom is in gestation. And we can kind of deduce about how long it is until she's going to give birth. That can tell us a lot about, the important habitats that she's kind of migrating around with. Now, sometimes in our expeditions, we do a lot of fishing and not a lot of catching. And this is a trip we had off of North Carolina. You can see that everyone's kind of hanging out, waiting for some action. And, sometimes the sharks aren't biting, but also there are areas where you just can't fish for sharks, or the sharks may be too endangered that you're not allowed to catch them. So what do? How do you study the reproductive biology? Well, you develop an underwater ultrasound. This has been an amazing advancement. We worked with the company EI Medical in order to do this. We spent a lot of time using it in the Maldives. A couple of great collaborators out there, Pelagic Divers, Formula Dive School, NGO, Niaru, all work together to really figure out, if tiger sharks within this protected area that was a dive site provisioned, what were the sharks doing there? Why are there so many tiger sharks? And what we found was that when we used this underwater ultrasound on these tiger sharks, that all the sharks were pregnant and that they were using this area as a gestational ground. And it was the first time that was ever discovered for that part of the world. And so it kind of opened up our eyes that, that there could be these very special spaces for these sharks and these very unique behaviors, right? These mom sharks is all gathering together. Why are they doing that? Sort of the next steps. But now we know we need to protect these areas. And this is why we are developing these kind of techniques. And this is great. And that's what those sharks look like. You can see as it swims by, we're getting data. There's a baby shark right there and right there. Super cool. And again, advancing that technology, now we have, and now we know why that shark is in that area. And it becomes even more special and important to protect. But it's all not fun and games, right? This is the Discovery Channel show that we're filming. Some stuff makes it look really easy, but the sharks are a little bit testy. And you can see that, they wanted to take a bite of that ultrasound, or maybe it was me. I'm not quite sure. So we've learned so much right now about these animals, where they're moving, maybe some of the behavioral components are around these movements. But what we really want to know is where these sharks are giving birth. We want to know migration patterns. We want to know the gestation grounds. And we want to know the birthing grounds. And how do you do that? Well, we've developed a new tag. It's called an intrauterine birth tag. And again, we're the only ones that are using this because we've developed it. And what this does is it goes inside the mom. Sharks are a lot like reptiles. They have a cloaca opening, or a hole that goes right into their uterus. And we can insert that tag without having to do any type of surgery and put it right inside mom's uterus. And it sits there with her babies. And those babies, when they grow up, they stick around that tag. And when it's time to give birth, those babies come out and the tag pops off and floats to the surface and transmits a location of the exact time. So this is some of the work that we were doing on hammerheads in North Carolina. And this is actually on the Discovery Channel again. This is Mother Sharker, Hammer Time, which you can see it's conducting ultrasound. We were putting a fin mount tag on. Thanks to Discovery Channel, you get to see a baby hammerhead. It's super cool. And we insert the birth tag. You can see non-invasive goes in mom. This technology was actually developed for land mammals, for pigs, to find out where these feral pigs were giving birth. So we just took it and we made it waterproof and for a shark. And so release the shark, it swims away with a tag on the top and a tag inside. And the hope is that you were able to track mom. And so the cool thing is that this shark was a great transmitter. She spent about 2 months off North Carolina, and then she made a beeline south. In about 2 weeks, she was right off the coast of South Carolina, Georgia, came inshore, and we see that bullseye is where the birth tag popped out. And from our data, everything lined up, gestation, size of birth, and whatnot, but we had to be sure. So how do you be sure about this kind of stuff? Well, you have to go, and of course, you have to catch baby hammerheads. And baby hammerheads are super cool. They're mini me's. You can see it right there. And we hope this one grows up to be a big one. So that kind of put all that kind of research together and two and two and how we study sharks and whatnot. And that's a little bit of I guess, an inside scoop or to what we really do as a team and how we study sharks around the world and in different areas. This was actually off South Carolina. So we do a lot of really cool things like that. And the questions that always arise is like, wow, this is super cool. Can we help? Can we contribute? Can somehow get involved in this? Well, the answer is absolutely 100% yes. There's multiple ways that individuals can get involved with our work. And I'll talk about a couple of ways. We actually have citizen science trips, and I know this is like a travel kind of talk. And some areas that I'll talk about, it's kind of off the screen here, but two areas that I think would be super cool. One is actually here in Oregon. We do a lot of work in Oregon, a lot of citizen science trips, and one that's off of Mexico. Now, one of the trips that we go is in Willapa Bay, which is just over the border in Washington from Astoria. And this is what that kind of a trip looks like, right? Imagine, a citizen scientist going out on the boat. And here we're focusing on seven gills. And you can see we've caught a seven gill. We are checking to see what's in its stomach. We've got water running over the gills. We're taking measurements. We're putting a tag in the shark. We're checking all sorts of vital components of that shark. It's mature. We'll run an ultrasound. If it's pregnant, we'll tag it, and then we'll slowly cradle it back into the water, and we will release it, and it will swim away. You can see there's a tag right here, and then hopefully we recapture it, and we learn some really good data. You can see that shark swim away, and that is a little shark right there. They get really big. So Willapa Bay is a pretty cool trip that we've got on the docket. We've got another trip this is coming up in June. Willapa Bay runs year round. This is to Revolutionizing. That's an island off of Mexico, and it's a little board. It's a 6-day trip. You talk about being immersed in shark science. Basically, you eat good, you got a great cabin, you can hang out, you can go diving, you can see sharks, all kinds of cool stuff, including mantis and whale sharks and all these cool sea animals that we are so interested in studying. We also do mantle work as well. So this is kind of some of the insights, some of the work that we do, some of the places that we go that are accessible to citizen scientists. If you're interested, Fins Attached sponsors this. Some information right there. You can reach out to Alex. He's awesome. How else can you contribute, right, to the shark work? Donations. We have merch available. All that goes directly into supporting our research. One of the coolest things that's coming out is that you can purchase a shark license plate. And those are hot off the press. They've been out for about a week now, I think. But those plates, proportion that those sales go directly to support our work on sharks. So we're super excited about that. You can come to a lot of our events. We're always giving talks and outreach. We were at PRAX last year. We're in Portland at Summer of the Shark. we do dissections, do pub talks. We're always in the news, like I said, Shark Week, local news. And so there's those sorts of events that you can engage with as well. And of course, where's all this information? Well, you can find it here, QR code. You can queue that up. You can check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on Instagram, Big Fish Lab, Sulakowski Lab. Either one of those, we're all connected. There's our website. You can always reach out to me. My email's there. And we're super excited to engage with public citizen scientists. And our website explains all the potential citizen science trips, all the work we do in much more detail, all the cool things that we have going on, and how we always link it back to conservation management, training the next generation of marine scientists, and really making sure that we're able to have a environment that's sustainable, healthy, and ready for the next generation. And with that, you can thank a couple of our sponsors, and I will take any type of questions at this time.
This is great. We have a lot of questions that have been popping in. So I'm going to help you go through some of these here first and get everyone's questions answered. So thank you all for typing them in. It was great to see those pictures of the black reef shark. I got to snorkel with them in French Polynesia.
So
Yes, it was.
awesome. Yeah.
They were wonderful. They didn't care that we were there at all. Yeah, it was wonderful. So let's get started with some of our questions. The first one is, let me scroll up to the top. The questions are sharks curious? Do they naturally come up to the boat in a normally human-free area?
That's a really good question. Sharks are very curious. Yeah, very, very, very curious. A lot of the areas in which we study the sharks, there's not much food around. So any type of commotion, they're like, okay, is it dinner time or not? And oftentimes they'll check us out and they're like, I'm out of here. But certain species like tiger sharks, man, they are really, really curious. They'll follow you around.
Oh, that's wonderful. Robert was wondering if basking sharks have baleen.
Basking sharks do not have baleen. No, they have a specialized, we call them gill rakers, that help to create like a vortex almost that helps to catch the copepods and the smaller prey. Much different than baleen in a whale.
Nice. We've had a couple questions about sharks in live birth versus laying eggs. So I know there's a mix. Some do live birth and some lay eggs. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
Yes. So that's one of the cool things about sharks and their reproduction is that they've got all sorts of different modes. You've got the egg layers, which is sort of the most ancestral, I would say, of all those reproductive modes. And most sharks fall in that category. But then the rest of the group, about 40%, fall into the live bearers. And you can have, aplacental pupaparity or aplacental live birth. And basically what happens is the baby hatches from the egg inside mom, and mom acts like the egg case. And when the yolk is gone, the baby's born. You have oophagy, where the mom produces eggs. She ovulates non-fertilized eggs, and the babies are eating those inside mom. And then when they're ready to be born, they pop out. You have intrauterine cannibalism. Basically, the first sharks to develop teeth inside the womb eat everybody else. And so those sharks give birth to two pups, one on each uterus. And then you have sharks that have placental attachments like us. And those are live bearers as well. So very complex and very interesting.
Wow, that is really interesting. Then Sarah was wondering, how do you pick the sharks to ultrasound? Can imagine it can take a bit of time to do that. Do you ultrasound all the females, or is there certain criteria just by looking at it, that shark's pregnant?
That is so shark research is so frustrating because we're looking for like the specific shark while we're out there. And so we may go out there and we catch like 10, 15 sharks or maybe none. And none of them are the ones we're actually looking for. So any female that we catch that is within size of maturity. Like if we think that she's mature, we'll ultrasound her to see if she's pregnant or not. We still don't know a lot about reproductive cycles of most species. So yeah, we take every opportunity to ultrasound any species we get.
Oh, that's good. We had one other attendee that's wondering where your favorite place that you've been to study sharks.
Man, that's a hard one. Wow, that's a really hard one. Yeah, I would say that, well, the Maldives are incredible. Like the water's so blue and so clear, and the sharks are so big and they're so curious and they're around you. That's a really cool place. But I have a soft spot for New England just because the poor beagle is this, we call it a phantom shark because we know so little about it. And it's just a really cool species. But it's really tough up there. So yeah.
So one, I have to ask a question that I was wondering about. Um, when you're doing the shark research and you're watching where the migration routes and the different places they're going, have you been noticing changes with climate change, shifts in patterns or temperature, water temperatures, and what have you been noticing the last bit?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. That's why we're doing this work. That's why we developed this bird tag. That's why we're using ultrasounds. We are seeing, particularly on the East Coast, we're seeing shifts north. So there's range expansion for a lot of these species. So hammerheads, tiger sharks, sharks that never would have been thought to be off of New England are starting to show up there. And if they're moving, then their nursery grounds, these areas where babies are being born, are shifting as well. And what might be a really pristine area with no urbanization, all of a sudden shifts to an area of high human traffic and urbanization. So we want to try to understand how to prepare for that and be able to coexist with sharks, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. There's a couple questions that came in about shark legislation and protecting sharks in international waters. And how do you navigate those jurisdictional boundaries? Are there countries where the models in protecting sharks? And then did you do anything to help put those in place?
Um, so the tough part is sharks don't understand international boundaries. They would, it would make our life so much easier. But I'll give you an example. In Canada, the poor beagle shark is a protected species. It's endangered. But as soon as you cross the border in the United States, the level of concern drops, and you can actually catch them and eat them. They're actually good to eat. So as soon as that shark crosses from Canada to US, they can be caught, right? And so we're working with those groups and to develop better management plans and how to help those sharks that cross those international boundary lines. And the same thing with the US and Mexico, even the US East Coast, West Coast. So it's a challenge for us for sure. But I will say this is that the United States and their allies, their management is really good, and shark populations are actually a lot of them are increasing, which is what we want.
That's great. Somewhat related to that, their question is about, we've heard of shark fin soup before and being a delicacy in certain areas, and they're part, some like in China was discouraging the consumption of shark fin soup, and they're wondering if any of this has changed, but also made me wonder as I'm watching you tag these sharks. On top of that, could you talk a little bit about what the fin is made of as well, and if they feel anything when you tag them?
Yeah. Um, so what it feels like is, for for a shark that has a really stiff fin, it feels like sandpaper that's on top of cardboard. I would say that's it's stiff but a little bit flexible, right? It kind of feels like that. And so sharks don't have the neural networks that we do, so they don't perceive pain like we do. And the best way I can describe it, it'd be like, they're probably perceiving that tag as like, an earring, or something like that. It's like a pop and it's gone. They don't. It doesn't even bother them. Like we've tagged a shark and we've recaught it, and they're like, what's going on? You know, it's like you figure, I just want to get out of here. And a lot of the hammerheads that we've worked with, we've caught them, and their mouths are covered in stingray spines. So, you know, it's just one of those things that they've evolved to just be these apex predators.
Right. And what about shark fin soup? So has there been a decline in people eating it, or
I
still
mean,
the same?
it's still a thing for sure. And I'll tell you why it's a thing is that a shark's fin in certain parts of the world generates about upwards of $100 a pound, right? And that's its worth. And so it's a really high value component of that animal, and the meat's worth nothing. So that's where you get the finning, and it takes place. So a hammerhead may have, you know, 100 pounds of fins on it. And you think about that, if it's, you know, 20, 30, 40, $100 per pound, what's that worth? And that's where the issue is. And so it's still a problem. Here in the United States, again, our species are very well managed. So it's not a concern, but once you get outside in international areas where there's very sometimes third world management, it's not very good. That's where you have problems.
Yeah, that makes sense. Serena says hello, and is wondering, is the research at a point where you may have seen any changes in reproduction, such as long gestation periods or longer periods in between gestations?
Wow, that's a really complex question. I would say that one is that we know so little about reproduction in general. Like we're studying the old methods that with dissections and all these things, like that were happening, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Like we're finding out things now that are much different. Like sharks are plastic. We think that they can, you know, take a year off, you know, that they can go year to year depending on environmental conditions. So there's a lot of variability. We may have two populations of the same species that do completely different and be in different types of areas of the world. So it's very complex. We're just touching the tip of that iceberg right now. And those are very good questions. That's what we're interested in. You know, is gestation shorter, longer, disrupted because of some of these environmental or anthropogenic changes that are occurring?
That's great. Um, and Amy was wondering how students can get involved with the Big Fish Lab.
So I would say that we love students. You know, we're always looking to engage with students. We have a big lab right now. It's like 20 students in our lab. Reach out and see if we, you know, have openings and can engage with students. Taylor has a shark class. We have internships as well, and there's all sorts of ways that students get involved, and that's part of our mission and what we do. You know, we love training the next generation for sure.
Yeah. They were also wondering about any prerequisites or any qualifications that they definitely have to do beforehand.
Absolutely, there's three. You have to be responsible, dependable, okay, and you have to be able to get along in a group. If you can do that, no problem, right? We don't expect anyone to come in with all these great skills. Like that's what we're supposed to do is teach you skills. And you know, if you're dependable and motivated and responsible, then you're got a leg up.
Well, that's great. Spencer was wondering if there's a public data repository for students to work with.
Public, in what sense? I guess. Like,
Spencer, do you want to type a little bit more out there? Maybe if someone's doing some additional research, they can also read what your findings are.
yeah, so all of our stuff, we publish all of our work. Like we just like if you look at, you know, Sulakowska Lab today, we just published a new paper. And you know, a couple days ago, there's another post from the Big Fish Lab, you know, that a publication. So yes, all of our work ends in publication, or you know, student presentations, publications, and so it's out there for public consumption.
Great, great. Another question wondering about if you collaborate with indigenous nations and scientists.
All over yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. You know, some of my best friends and colleagues are in the Maldivian, from Mexico. Yeah, you know, Brazil. We're all over in our collaborations, and we love that. We love that diversity. We love that ability to work in different areas, to produce the science and help advance science, take our expertise and use their expertise. And we love that.
Oh, great. Great. Another question about gestation. So they know that large mammals have long gestation and frequent reproduction, which leaves them vulnerable to extinction from small or minimal hunting, killing pressures. It sounds like sharks have a similar issue. And if so, have there been studies on how much pressure could lead to shark extinctions?
Yeah, they're one of the things that Jaws did was that it wiped out a ton of shark species to the point of like extremely low population levels. And then we, as scientists, were like, hey, something's going on here. And we started studying that. And we started running, understanding their age, their growth, their reproductive periodicity. And so we were finding that they are a lot like us, right? And it doesn't take a lot of fishing pressure for some of the longer lived species, the species that don't reach maturity until they're 15, 16, 17 years old, to be easily, I guess, the populations to be reduced very quickly. And it takes them a long time to come back. Part of the issue is that, you know, a lot of the fisheries look for large animals, right? And sometimes a shark can look really large, but it's not mature. And so you're actually wiping out animals before they got to be able to reproduce. And that's where they really run into the problem. But yeah, so they're a lot like mammals in that sense, that they easily wiped out.
That's great. So a couple questions about tagging. Eric was wondering how many tags you're able, or how many sharks you're able to tag a year and how many different species. And then Mike was wondering, is those tags, are they developed by a third party or is some of that technology Oregon State technology?
Yeah, it's all third party. That's a really good question. We work with the companies to develop it. And so one of the companies we work really closely with is called Low Tech, and they're out of Canada. And so we're developing all sorts of, like the birth tag. We're developing what's called a baby tag, which actually will grow with the shark as it
Oh,
grows. So yeah, super cool stuff like that. Um, you know, if we get really lucky, we might tag, you know, 4 or 5 sharks in a day. Um, so that would be like, oh my gosh, incredible day. Usually it's like a couple that we may get. Sometimes it's none. Um, so you know, it's the stuff that you see on TV. It's completely inaccurate. You know, takes a long time to do the stuff that we're trying to do.
hmm, that makes sense. Yeah, social media in general, same way.
Yeah.
Yes. Keegan was wondering if you have a favorite project that you're working on right now or a favorite part of the research in general. And then also, what's the hardest part about studying sharks?
I'd say that the hardest part about hardest part about studying sharks really is finding funding to do it. It's really difficult. For the most part, you know, shark research is limited because they're not a commercially important species, and it's just that's where most of the money is tied to. So for us, it's a struggle to find the funding. The favorite part about the work, honestly, is training the next generation and finding the new, answering specific questions like where are sharks going and how can we help with the management and conservation. And I'd say that those are really important drivers for me for sure. And you know, a favorite part or thing I'm most excited about, like developing the birth tag and really finding out where these sharks are giving birth is what we're really kind of hyper focused on right now.
Yeah. We did have another comment. They were wondering if you are, or if your lab is facing any cuts in funding with the new administration.
We absolutely, just like everybody else, is tough. You know, and all of our colleagues are. So the work that we were actually doing in marine sanctuaries, we don't know if we're gonna be able to do that now, right? And these sanctuaries are important. Like these are places that are supposed to be protecting species. And, if they leave that area and they become vulnerable, then, oh, how can we protect them? And so we're kind of stuck right now trying to figure that out.
Well, hopefully all that funding will come back for you sometime soon.
Buy a license plate.
Yes, license plate. And yes, my colleague Allie, she put a link to license plate in chat. So if you all are following the chat, you'll see there is the link to purchase a license plate. And Anna was wondering if you work with any shark researchers on the East Coast.
Yes, quite a bit actually. Yeah, in fact, we're going to the East Coast in July and October. We work with two groups, Atlantic Shark Institute throughout Rhode Island, and we collaborate with Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. We do a lot of work with Beneath the Waves. They're based out of DC. We do work in North Carolina. Yeah, so we love to collaborate.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Well, we're nearing the end of the talk, so I just want to be able to let folks to remind them that the Big Fish Lab is down in Newport. And are you at the Hatfield Marine Science Center, or is it a separate structure?
We are in the Hatfield Marine Science Center.
Great. So if you go down to Newport, you can go check out the Hatfield Marine Science Center. It's open. There's all sorts of exhibits there that you can go check out. And is the octopus still there? I love looking at the octopus.
I think so. I think they just got a new one.
Yeah.
So
Oh, nice.
yeah.
So it's definitely a field trip for you all to take. And if you have any questions, James said you are welcome to email him. So we will definitely follow up this video too. You'll get an email for everyone who registered. You'll get the video link so you can watch it and share it with your friends. We will also post it on our Travel Talks website, so you can always watch it there as well as any of the other recorded Travel Talks that we have. So thank you very much, James. Love that you were with us today. I learned so much. I actually have notes of so many more questions that I could ask you too.
Sounds good.
But
let me have it.
Yeah. But everyone have a really great night, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.